I was bored out of my mind. Living in this small-ass excuse of a town was getting quite repetitive, and over time it got to the point where it nearly drove me insane. I don't know how they do it. By this, I mean the 702 townspeople that live here. Thank God I managed to find a house in a somewhat suburb-like area in this wasteland. The place was your typical neighbourhood, with houses on either side of the street and assorted trees here and there. Most people knew their neighbours, and the ones that didn't probably could give it a lick less either way. Welcome to Beaver Brook, Wisconsin. Anyway, on to the story. It was late evening in this sleepy little town, so everyone is either heading home from work or finishing up some last-minute errands. As far as I know, I was the only one on my block that was even home. Bored in this desolate solitude of a neighbourhood, and my own home for that matter, I glanced out of my window. It was a simple glance, like your eye would take if you saw a tiny flash of movement just in the border of your peripheral vision. It would have only lasted for a short second before I resumed whatever I was doing, but it turned into an all-out staring contest after I noticed it. The sun was almost directly in my eyes, but I knew it was there, a seemingly transparent, motionless figure hovering off the ground. I covered the sun so my eyes were shaded from its blinding rays, and I could now see it in full view. As I correctly concluded earlier, the figure had barely opacity whatsoever. I would have assumed it was a person had I not seen its face. It had no eyes, just empty sockets. I couldn't 100% tell you that its pupils were floating in the sockets, but I can't say that they weren't either. Something of a deep greyish colour was there. If you looked into them, they seemed to be some sort of endless dark void. It had no nose, only two holes where there once were. There was a faint trail of blood dripping from where all these things had been, and to top the gruesome details off, it was smiling, from ear to ear. It was a grotesque smile of bloody, jagged teeth that completed the terrifying scene. I couldn't move a muscle. It felt as if I was in some sort of trance, and the thing's sinister glare was holding me in place. It elevated its hand to point at me. This wasn't your typical pointing of a finger at somebody. Oh, no. The figure's hand was pointing 2 fingers at me and letting the rest drop down. It looked as if it was reaching for something, but that something was out of range. My heart was racing and I was trembling. For the first time in what seemed like forever, I was actually scared. Really scared. My hand moved upwards, immediately causing the harsh evening sun to shine brightly into my eyes. This caused an unstoppable cringe, in which I closed my eyes tightly and turned around. Putting my hand back over the sun through the window, I looked at where the figure once stood, or more accurately, floated. Oh, it was gone. God damn it, I yelled to myself. I let a fucking mirage get me all worked up. Oh, I really need to get out of this town. And then I felt 2 gentle, yet slightly sharp objects nuzzle against my back. I turned around very slowly to see 2 endless, grey voids staring back at me.